All right, I'm so sorry to cut the conversation short, but I do want to give enough time for our education panel at the Education and Esports event. So if I could invite you all back to your seats, please, or to take your discussion quietly elsewhere.
Yeah, really.
We have a really stellar panel set up here. One of the growth areas for esports has been addressing the collegiate scene, as we saw on our previous panel. But the question remains, what is the way to integrate esports into college environments? From newly formed arenas to majors to other sorts of pipelines that colleges are creating, this panel will explore how different groups are preparing for esports in educational settings. We're joined today from two representatives from UNC Chapel Hill, Christina Riegel and Hunter R. Jameson. And then from Hampton University, we're joined by Professor David Hughes. And the discussion will be moderated by Greg Topo right here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm glad to see the deal making went outside. This is great. We're going to keep this as loose as we can. I like to make this as much of a discussion as possible. I'm a firm believer that you learn more by hearing people interact than just by kind of static speeches on stage. So what we're going to do is just have a very brief introduction. Just sort of tell us who you are and why you're here. And then we'll kind of jump right into it. And just be warned that I will break another protocol, which is at some point I might just turn to you guys and say, who's got a question? It's not going to be for the last 10 minutes of the session. So let's get started. Please introduce yourself because I'm not going to.
Yeah, so my name is Christina Riegel. I am the Assistant Director with the ResNet program at UNC Chapel Hill.
I'm Hunter Jameson, a student consultant for the esports program with ResNet.
And so what I'm going to do is introduce a little bit about our organization and then how it integrates with esports. So to start out with, we are a very traditional technology support group at Chapel Hill. We support all of the technology for Carolina Housing, which is within student affairs. We only have 4 full-time staff members on this team and then 53 student staff members. And we support anything and everything that's related to the technology at Carolina, at least within housing. So when we were approached about building an esports arena, it was a little bit out of our field. It's related based on technology, but not necessarily on what our day-to-day life is. And so we were approached, and at first we were a little bit apprehensive. But I told my director, I said, well, the esports club is one of the largest clubs on campus. So there's demand here. And so then we started looking further. And what we did was we started talking to people. We talked to our colleagues that brought us the idea. And we really wanted to make sure to start talking to the students involved. So we reached out to the esports club and consistently got their advice throughout the development phase of this project. And then we also started researching other peer institutions. And so we reached out to the University of California at Irvine and their leadership to see where they saw successes and where they saw failures. And that was really key in helping us to get started on solidifying a plan for this arena.
So can I just jump in?
Yeah.
So just in case people aren't like 100% paying attention here, this is a residential life thing.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
within residential life, so
Okay.
in the housing program. We are building this facility in the bottom of a residence hall that was built in the 60s.
Okay.
It's a high-rise, it has 6 floors, and we are building it in the basement that used to be a study lounge.
Okay.
And so then what we did is we needed to pitch this to Carolina Housing because they aren't familiar with the esports community or anything like that. And so we developed a plan, pitched it to housing, and they were like, sure, why not? That sounds fun. It sounds like something that our residents would really want to see at Carolina. And so then we also tried to get the support of other community partners across campus. So we went to the Parents Council because having parent support is very important in making sure that they feel comfortable that their students, when they go off to college, aren't making a decision that they initially thought would be a risky decision. You know, a lot of parents came to us saying, well, we've tried to get our son, our daughter to stop playing games. why are you putting this where they live? Well, one, they're already doing it anyway. But also, there are lots of different ways that we can integrate healthy behaviors in an esports arena, or academic goals in an esports arena.
Did you have any research or any, even just sort of ballpark on how many students actually were coming to college with like a console or gaming, just kind of bringing it with them?
I don't have any hard data, but we have seen an increase in people wanting more Ethernet connections. It used to be the trend was everyone was going to wireless, and then it started switching. People wanted to go back to Ethernet connections.
And they're asking for it in their dorm room?
So we still have an Ethernet-based. Well, we have wireless and Ethernet. We're one of the few universities that still have that physical network.
Hunter, do you have any sense of like what your classmates, what percentage, and we're going to get back to you, don't worry, but just in terms of how many showed up already ready to game?
Yeah. So from being a residential consultant and helping so many students in the dorms with setting up their own technology, I can speak from experience. It's anecdotal, but it's experience that pretty much every room I'll go into. I mean, I might be slightly exaggerating, but a lot of rooms, someone has at the very least a console. And if they ask me, I will recommend them, well, let's set up a wired connection. Let's give you Ethernet.
So college students, freshmen, bringing their consoles to college.
Their consoles at the very least. And I'm among the extreme group that has been into gaming so long that I have my own heavy desktop that I lug to college or back home when it's a break. But so we'll help set those up too. It's not just a presence of consoles, but the hard desktop that the student has built that they use to practice competitive gaming or even just casual. Yeah.
You evidently bring your own chair too. I don't know if anybody noticed this.
Yeah.
These are the chairs that we're going to have in the arena.
Okay. Sorry. Let's get back to what you were saying.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's really important that we ask our community partners for help, because we're such a small team. We need help from those outside groups. So we need help from the networking team on campus. We need help we need buy-in from our facilities team that the projects that they're working on is something valuable to them. And we can't do it alone. We also need our vendors. And so we reached out with the contacts that we've had to different companies like Respawn, who did our chairs, and Lenovo, who's doing all of our desktops for the space for assistance and help in that arena. So.
Okay. So back to me. I'm here to present the student and student employee perspective on the esports space on campus. And maybe I shouldn't even call it the esports space. Our goal is not just to promote esports in the space, but to really get the casual gamer in there and to introduce new people to gaming. We talked earlier about how there hasn't been historically any way for female gamers and stuff to engage. It hasn't been advertised to them as something that's for them. The space we're building here on campus, we aim will be inclusive to everyone. People who are new to it, people who want to do stuff competitively in the space. We should have the hardware and the people to make that happen, okay? But yeah, I think a lot of questions on this will come, and I'll be able to answer them as they come, but...
So talk about your student, obviously, and you're also an employee. So talk about the job.
Okay. So, well, from the perspective of an employee, it has been the expected debacle to be able to set up this space. We're looking at sometime in March, finally opening it up. But like Christina said, we're turning the basement of an old dorm, really, into what will be the first esports arena on campus.
So what was there before?
A study lounge.
Yes. One might get a lot more use than the other.
Is that like kind of your typical kind of dingy with like a snack machine in the corner?
I will never say that it's dingy,
Okay.
which is what it was underutilized.
Okay, thank you.
But a bit more on the student perspective. So we did an event last semester on campus preparing to open this space up where we put up a bunch of banners, and we put out the desktops that we would have in the space. And the feedback we saw and the presence at that event was insane. I mean, we had 4 projector screens set up in a location on South Campus of UNC that was near to where the space will be. And we had hundreds of people responding to our survey, expressing incredible amounts of interest in the space. I think what the presence of this esports space on campus, I was speaking with someone earlier before we even started this panel, that it's sort of righting a wrong, right? A lot of people grew up playing sports, and then when they get to college, they see their campus, their university investing in the sport they played their whole life, right? There's a team that they can root for. If you were young and you grew up playing games, I've been playing games on a desktop since probably before I should have. My first game I ever played was Halo on my dad's office computer. And so if you grew up playing a game and that was your sport, you never saw that invested in by your university, by your school before now. I think it's starting to finally be respected, and I think students really appreciate it. The investment we see from the students is pretty phenomenal.
So the idea is that sort of it sort of reflects sort of the things you loved growing up. You can sort of keep investing in it as a young adult.
Yeah. I mean, if you love football growing up, you have a football team you can root for. If you loved video games growing up, you're only just now getting a local team or even a team for your school that you can look towards, maybe that you could play for.
Okay.
And I want to speak to that a little bit. So students are already creating this for themselves, but with the creation of an esports arena, it's helping the university legitimize what they already won, what they're already working on.
Okay. Great. That's a great kind of first look at what you guys are doing. Let's turn to David for something totally different, I think. We'll talk about the program that's emerging at Hampton and sort of what some of the thinking was behind it.
Well, at Hampton University, we did the complete opposite of what everybody's doing. So
Okay.
everybody's usually starting with clubs or teams, and we started with the academic piece first.
So you started with a program.
Yes.
Okay.
So later, at the end of this month, we'll be launching online certificate courses starting off. So where we'll be certifying people in coaching esports, then also facility management. So we're looking to partner with the Virginia High School League. Right now, Virginia is one of 8 other states that is co-piloting the sport of esports in the K-12 sector. So next academic year, there's going to be thousands upon thousands of esport coaches jobs opening. So there's going to be opening, but there's no certification process. So that's where we're coming in. Also, for people who want to get involved in facility management in esports, running it, being a eventual commissioner, game day operations, anything like that, we'll be offering that certificate as well. Later on this summer, we'll offer a concentration in esport management at the graduate level. So students who attend our university for sport management, masters, they'll be able to concentrate in esports. Then once those are complete, then we'll look forward to opening up a esports center and then eventually a team.
So before we get too far into it, talk a little bit about Hampton. Tell me about its background. Tell me about who the students are, because some folks might not know it's an HBCU.
Okay, well, Hampton is an historically black college or university. HBCU is one of the most prestigious and oldest universities. Few alumni: Booker T. Washington, Dr. Martin Luther King's mother, Freeman Hubrowski, has currently been nominated as Time President of the Year at UMBC, Maryland.
He's an alum.
Yes, he's an alum. A lot of prominent people. So historically, Hampton actually has the world's oldest African-American museum. The first reading of the Emancipation Proclamation was held on Hampton's campus, so it's impossible to tell the story of African-Americans in America and not mention Hampton University. So it's a very historical institution. And so what I wanted to do at Hampton is, like a lot of the panelists have said, is with esports, there's a lot of pushback from the community where we don't want our children to only play video games. So most people approach esports as STEM, but we're looking to approach it as STEAM, which is science, technology, arts, engineering, and math. So we're looking at more so professions behind the camera, which is why we're going with the academic piece as well. So we're looking for people who can code to create video games, script writing, do the score on video games as well, graphic designers. We want people in front of and behind the camera when you're streaming. If you are streaming, you need a team. You're going to need a lawyer. So we're looking at doing filling those things for the need of diversity as opposed to starting with gaming. So we're looking to be more influential behind the scenes and behind the cameras. And that was the thought of starting with the academic piece first.
Wow.
So now students will be available for internships at these companies where had we started with the gamings, they wouldn't be available. They wouldn't be able to get those internships.
And so in a way, like you guys, like esports, I mean, the reason you're here is because of esports, but it sounds like esports is just a piece of the bigger thing you want to do over at Hampton, correct?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So what we're looking to do is, one, fill a void in diversity in esports, but two, expand the market to African Americans who have not had the opportunity to work on creating a video game, doing a score for a game, writing the script for a game, coding a game. So now that these opportunities are available, we need to take full advantage of them.
And your background is sports management, correct?
Yeah, sports management. So
talk about how you made this. Maybe it's not even a transition at all. Talk about that.
So graduated originally from the suburbs of Houston, Texas. Graduated from Morehouse College in Atlanta. Worked for the Houston Texans in corporate development, ticket sales for a few years. Got into sport management, and I noticed the trend is esports. I noticed no other HBCU, only a few universities were doing it. So I thought we need to do it. President Trump, he made a mandate with Homeland Security to partner with HBCUs for employment, internship opportunities, and so I was able to take advantage of it. As a result, I was able to get a grant for about over $300,000 worth of technology to start the esports initiative at Hampton University. Now, while I was able to get that, we still are looking for more sponsors for our lab. So if anybody,
Hint.
yes. So if anybody would like to help sponsor us, please let me know. But that's how everything got started.
So the deal making will be over here after the panel, right?
Oh yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Just stage left. You mentioned just sort of the reaction on campus. Was it an alumni resistance to it? Was it faculty? Like when this idea was first floated, then what? What happened?
Well, honestly, I got the money, then I got the idea.
Oh, good. Okay,
So,
well, that always helps. Right?
Yeah, I did the opposite, so that way there was no resistance. I said, hey, I just got this grant, and by the way, this is what I'd like to do. Oh, okay, well, yeah, cool. One of the things I've seen is a lot of love and support from the community and the students and alumni. So oftentimes we think Black people are monolithic, and they're not. So we actually have an anime club on campus. So now the students from the anime club are coming by my office saying, "Hey, thank you. I can't wait till the gaming center is open. Can I bring my own PC in the gaming center?" People are reaching out for partnerships and deals because when you're looking for diversity, I know somebody talked about women. You have to be intentional. So I believe when you come from a diverse background and you're leading a diverse initiative, it's easy to be intentional because you know what it feels like to be excluded, and you want to make sure that you don't exclude yourself. Well, one of the things we'll be doing is we'll be starting a pilot program in Detroit, Michigan, with about 3 schools, and one of the schools will be all female. That will come and take the online courses to be certified in either project management or coaching esports. And so one of the things we're also looking to do is we understand not everybody's going to go to college. And we wanted to create an avenue where people can make legal money in esports should they choose not to go to college or should you choose to go to college. So you can be a sophomore, junior in college and still game and make a lot of money. So that's one of the things that that's one of the reasons why we went into that as well.
So just one more question, then I want to kind of open it up a little bit. So you talked about certificate programs. I mean, does that go hand in hand with what you just said? This idea that you could be working on a certificate, not even being on campus. Talk a little bit about that.
Our certificate program is 100% online.
Okay.
So we'll be working.
But could I be like a high school kid? I mean, like.
Yes. We're partnering with high schools, but we'll also be offering it for college students, adults, anybody who wants it. There's no age limit. As long as you're able to read and write, you should be good.
Yeah.
But we're specifically doing the Pt.2 approach
Okay.
to try to build a pipeline. So the hope is if you come to Hampton Online for the online courses, that eventually you might want to come here for something as well.
And just for those who might not know, P through 20 is
P.2 is essentially pre-K through graduate school. It's an educational term meaning you focus on holistic or long-term education than just middle school, high school.
Gotcha.
So they're growing up playing esports in elementary school. So by the time you're in middle school, if you want a certificate, you'll be old enough to get it.
Mhm.
So if now you know what Hampton University is and what they do, and you're familiar with them from the time you're maybe 12, the likelihood of you going to college
Sure.
then increases because you're exposed to it.
Sure.
And so that's one of the things we're doing as well. Very multifaceted.
I mean, it strikes me as strategically smart. As if nothing else, it's just putting the name in people's heads from a very early age. You know, I wanted to. You mentioned, and it's come up a couple of times. This gender idea. You know, the idea when we were watching the game jam in Rockville is mostly male. You know, the sport is mostly a male endeavor. It strikes me though that, you know, this has, like, from the ground up, real potential to have a kind of a gender equality, gender parity, maybe, you know, something that that real sports, professional sports, NFL, the NHL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, by definition do not have, right? I mean, the NFL is, you know, to be sort of real about it, is like a men's league, right? Whereas the Overwatch League, there's no definition that you have to be male. There's like a great potential from the get-go. How do you guys address that? How are you understanding that? What are you doing to draw more women into these endeavors? And that's open up to anybody.
So our esports arena isn't open yet, but we make sure to include our student voices in any of the plans that we're making, and our student staff are pretty much 60% female and 40% male. And so we're making sure to get opinions from them and make sure that we're getting all the voices in the room. When we open up the space, we want to be very strategic about the programming that is going to be offered in there. So we want to make sure that we are advertising to certain groups on campus that are generally missed from different networking events, that kind of thing. But we also want to have like a women in gaming night and different communities, because while we want the athletic side to be there, and that'll come there from the esports club, we want to be able to proactively facilitate conversations on culture and changing gender dynamics in the space.
And when you talk about being strategic about programming, I wonder how much of that, and this is the most naive question you'll get today, probably the first of many. I wonder how much of that is choosing different kinds of titles, or is that's a stupid question? Like,
I don't know if it's in like literally the titles of things, but it's who is organizing.
By the way, titles, I mean games.
Oh,
I don't mean
games,
like
okay.
honorifics. I mean like what games are what games are these people playing?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. It's more, I think, if someone on their hall sees that their RA is a gamer and wants to have a program that is in the esports arena, those people can see someone like as an example, and that they are actually included in this space. Because a lot of times what we get, the feedback that we get from our female residents, is they don't feel when they hear esports that it's something for them, that they can be included. And so we're trying to open up, you know, what is gaming in the first place, but also who is allowed to be there, which is everyone is allowed to be there, it's just they don't feel it.
Gotcha. Do you have thoughts on that, Hunter?
Yeah, I can add to that. So, I mean, we call the Carolina Gaming Arena the Carolina Gaming Arena, right? Because it's not just supposed to be a competitive space. It's also a space to learn and to introduce new people to this, including a male and a female audience alike. But in terms of, like, we talk, Christina mentioned, like, we have, 60% female staff, and we're getting their perspectives on it. The esports area of our initiative also has, just yesterday I was listening to two of our RCCs talk about how to make events targeted to groups who aren't as common in the esports scene. And we're doing all of this preemptively before the space even opens to try and make it, a gaming arena, not an esports arena. So it doesn't reflect the current climate, but hopefully a future one. But yeah, I mean, in terms of titles, that I'm sure there are plenty of games, right, that have more of a male audience, a male player base. But I wanted to say earlier, I wasn't up here earlier, but I want to say earlier, there's more women in gaming than you realize.
Yeah.
It's just not realized yet,
Yeah, I know the ESA figures are astounding in terms of the gender breakdown.
Yeah, especially for certain games. League of Legends, Overwatch, two of the top ones. It's not as astoundingly male-dominated as we're led to believe. It's just that we haven't got yet the culture that women feel like they can come out and just be playing games competitively. But realistically, that'll be the future, I'm sure.
Gotcha. David, you want to address the gender thing anymore?
Well, yeah, I'll touch on one of the modules in our online esports coaching is diversity. So everybody who comes to Hampton University Continuing School of Education to be certified as an esports coach will have to take a module about diversity. So if you're an esports coach and you're now trained on diversity and the importance of it, when you go and recruit students or players to be on your team, the likelihood of you having diversity is then increased. And so also what we're going to look to do in the future is also look to students with disabilities for esports as well. So between intentionally targeting women in Detroit, the modules of diversity that are included in our programming, and then students with disabilities as well, we feel like we're going to start off hitting diversity on every level.
It strikes me that one of the things that's always really fascinated me about gaming, just in general, when I say gaming, I mean, sort of the games that children play, all the way up to what adults play. I keep coming back to this quote from Jim G., who's this game scholar. And one of the things he said a couple years ago was that he was talking about the game Pokemon, which I guess is still around in a major way. And he, let me back up a little. So I've been covering education for, 20 years, and we talk about the achievement gap all the time, right? And when you say the word achievement gap, you know what it means, right? You know that certain groups don't do as well as other certain groups. And you can slice and dice it all you want, but some kids don't do as well as others. And what G said was, there's no Pokemon gap, right? Like every kid in America plays Pokemon, and kids of color, poor kids, do just as well as middle-class white kids. He also said, he sort of cynically, he said, well, if we introduced Pokemon as a school subject, we'd have a Pokemon gap in like 15 minutes. Like we'd find a way. And I guess I just wonder, just in terms of sort of stepping back and thinking about gaming, there's a sort of a natural resistance to it, I think, in some ways, sort of intellectually from some people. But it strikes me that, and I don't even know where my question is in this, that, gaming really starts out as a real equalizer for so many kids. And I wonder if that's something that works into you guys' calculations. It's something that your communities have any thoughts about?
So as far as being an equalizer, yes, it can be an equalizer, but as long as it's not prohibitively expensive. And so one of the things like PC gaming, like was mentioned earlier, is it's still very expensive. You have to buy licenses for certain games. Some of them are free, but then if you want to excel, you then buy the extra features that are in the game or the hardware itself. And so the thing that we're doing at Carolina is it is not going to be a pay-to-play system. If you walk into the arena, you're going to be able to play a game, sit down and play. There's going to be no fee associated with it.
Okay.
And so, there are people that are already playing in their rooms that have access to high-end equipment, but their peers do not have access to that same thing. And so at the arena, we're trying to make it very intentional that people have equal access to all of this high-end equipment.
Great. Anybody else want to address that? Or let's see if anybody have a question in the audience? I apologize for the mic holders. You are now being deputized early. Let's go to this gentleman with the yellow tie in the back. And let me, before we start, let me just give you a couple of ground rules. Like the last panel, just tell us who you are, where you're from, and please make it a question. As short as possible, too. I'll give you an award out at the end for the shortest question.
I'll go for that award if I can.
Great. Okay, let's hear it.
I'm here at the Woodrow Wilson Center. This has been the first panel, and this as well is just a new world for me.
Great.
I used to play the Oregon Trail. I was always RIP'd. I never made it to Oregon, my home state.
Nobody did.
In the early panel, one of the gentlemen said his parents gave him 3 options: law,
Yeah.
medicine, finance. A lot of parents have that kind of view. So when you say, we've just replaced the study hall with a gaming room, do you have any games where they could say, well, look, someone wants to know how to buy the lease on the Trump Hotel. Someone wants to get an experience of medicine. Someone wants to do some mathematical problems. Do you weave those into the games as something that would make parents feel a little more at ease?
So I can speak
Thanks.
to that. We are trying to have a holistic integration with all of the things that we are doing, just like was said earlier. So we are integrating professors, and professors are going to be able to either do special speaker sessions in the space, or there are going to be classes that are associated with it. We've already had interest in the different research opportunities that can happen in the space with students and the equipment. We're also trying to have other speaker series where it could end up being potential internship opportunities and building skills, just like was mentioned earlier. So marketing, production, journalism, all those kind of things. So we're not doing it just as people can come and have fun. They can have fun, they can build community, but they can also build like real skills that they can use in the future.
Great question. Yeah, because it does occur to me, like if you tore out the student lounge in the dorm and instead of putting in a gaming facility, put in, I don't know, a black box theater for dramatic productions, you'd get a lot of faculty interest, right? You'd get people who wanted to come see what was going on. And I wonder what the relationship is. I mean, maybe it's too early to tell, with faculty's of curiosity, if you will.
So our colleagues in the School of Arts and Sciences already have a group of people that are interested in coming to the space for all kinds of different reasons, but we haven't opened yet, and so we haven't even explored the true potential of, the logistics of them being able to use the space concretely.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else want to tackle that academics question? Okay. It's a great question. Let's this lady in yellow here.
I'm going to go back to Hampton. My name's Toby Klinger.
Where are you from, Toby?
Here in Kansas City.
Okay.
I teach in Kansas City. So my question is, there's been gaming programs for at least 15 years, maybe 20 years in colleges, starting with the community colleges. Does Hampton have a gaming certificate and a gaming degree, just generally speaking, or this is the first attempt to go into any form of gaming?
Yes, this is the first attempt to go into any gaming. So our students will have at the graduate level. So we're starting off at the graduate level. So their degree will be in sport management, and they'll have a concentration in esports. And then should you choose to be in the K-12 sector or be a non-Hampton student or a Hampton student or faculty or whoever, you'll get a certificate of completion from either coaching in esports or esport facility management. But we have computer science degrees, but we don't have a quote-unquote gaming center, or you won't get a degree in gaming. It'll be in esports.
Is there a plan for moving computer science, to building on the computer science to do more game design? You talked a little earlier about
Yes, so eventually we would like an innovation center, and the innovation centers where the students will be able to create the video games, write the scripts, score them, things like that, pitch them to producers. But that all comes in the future.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And one Homeland Security grant is not going to cover all that. Let's come down here, this gentleman here, and then we'll go up in the corner. We're going to get all you in. We got plenty of time. Right here in the vest.
Hello. Oh, hi. Hey, Greg.
How are you?
There's a
Tell
lot of
tell everybody who you are.
Oh, sorry. I'm Joshua Shen. I'm with the U.S. Department of State. There's a lot of talk about how the esports world, the gaming world, is not inclusive, there's a toxic environment. I like to flip the script a little bit and ask you guys, though, how esports and the way that maybe some of their companies have built-in incentives actually promote empathy and tolerance and all of that. One example that struck me was how Riot in League of Legends was trying to police their toxicity, and they started with a punitive measure, which I think still most people only think of here. But because the way the gamers and game designers are wired, they understand that, no, you built it through a incentive system that rewards people for positive behavior, and they found that so much more effective. So can you guys talk about changing the idea that, well, gaming is toxic, gaming is not inclusive, and tell people why it can be the other way?
Well, I'll start. Some studies that I've read have actually said that women make up a majority of the gamers. However, they don't identify as women on the consoles. So that is oftentimes why we think it's quote unquote toxic, because trash talking that goes on. Women might not want to receive the trash talking, so their mic is cut off. They have a gender neutral name or might take a male's name, but the research shows that they're actually women. So I would just cite that study to say that it is inclusive, but the only way to, I guess, promote that narrative would to have more women in esports at the actual esport conventions and gaming tournaments, so people can see it instead of just being behind the screen.
Mm-hmm. Hunter, you want to tackle that?
Yeah, I can tackle the positive reinforcement aspect of that. So before you mentioned, I was definitely going to say, Riot Games, League of Legends, the fact that they changed over their old system, right, where you get banned or punished from the game, especially the competitive or the ranked part of the game, for behaving toxically in game, typing cruel things in chat. And now they have this system where you gain honor, and a visible badge shows on your character profile if you've been kind to people, and people have constantly given you honor at the end of games saying you've been good. Other games mirror that too. I mean, Overwatch, since its release a couple years ago, has had a system where you can thumb up basically your allies or your enemies at the end of the game, right? So sportsmanship is promoted not just on the same team basis, but, I lost, but the other guy did really good. So a couple of thumbs up his way, and then his character name pops up and gets a little MVP thing going on. But yeah, there's a lot of positive reinforcement, I think, is really coming around as the main way, I think, to prevent toxicity almost. It sounds counterintuitive almost, but it seems to work.
And we've held some demo spaces, and this is all anecdotal, but we've held some demo events. And when people start to get a little carried away, their peers will say, hey, maybe that's not the best way to act. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. And so then they'll kind of flip the way that they're talking. And so it'll turn into this more positive interaction between friends, and they have great influence with each other and how they're behaving online.
Great. A couple of questions down here. The gentleman with the blue shirt, and then we'll go up to you in the corner. Do we have two mics? Okay, so you're next. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi there. Peter Williamson. I'm from here, Rockville, Maryland. I started a gaming company that's all about creating games for social good. So along the lines of the last question, I'm thinking about how these spaces that you create, I come from an architecture background, can enhance programs, but also incentivize people to get involved with philanthropy or helping their own community in some ways.
When you say spaces, what are you talking about?
So whether it be converting a lounge into a gaming space and promoting more play and places of play, and using those social environments to promote social behaviors, good acts of sort of philanthropy or giving back to causes that people care about. And if you've seen that in the programs that you started, start to build more momentum there.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
So our students in general, it's not even related to space. They are very motivated to help each other and to help the communities that they're a part of, that they came from, or that they see there's a need to help. So in the space, I don't know if we're doing anything extra to help promote philanthropy, just because they already come to the space with that in mind. To promote diversity, we are we have like all kinds of digital displays, and so we're going to make sure to accurately reflect our staff in those digital displays, and bios of people and things like that.
I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Hampton Roads, Newport News area, but it can be a little tough. A lot of housing projects out there. So one of the things that we want to do once we have the Innovation Center open is host summer programs where we can get low-income students to come and work on games. So imagine you're 14, 13, 12, and you now have the opportunity. You might be a good writer, but you don't necessarily take it serious in school. Now you're paired with a college mentor during the summer who can help you develop your script writing. And so instead of learning how to be a rapper or something like that, you might take that same ability of rapping and actually write a script to a game. And now you have an infrastructure where if it's good enough, it can go. Or you're really good at drawing, but you don't necessarily have the resources. Now, because there's a institution in place, you can go and work on graphic designer. You might be really good at math, but you're not really pushed. Now you know how to code. All from this Innovation Center. So once the Innovation Center is open, that's one of the things that we're looking to do via summer programs, winter programs, different things like that for the community.
Very cool. Up in the corner.
Hi, my name is Mike Muth. I work for the Department of Commerce, but I guess my perspective here is more just as a globetrotting adjunct professor teaching at business schools in Poland, India, South Africa, whatever. A big problem in academia is things existing in silos. And so my question is, what is being done to integrate esports across the curriculum? In other words, when I think about, media programs, communications programs, in some ways maybe math departments and so on. I'm an economics major. In business schools, I can see that there are tons of case studies. If not at your schools, can you give us examples of other integrations of esports across the curriculum?
I think from what I've seen, Ohio State has done a really good job. I believe it's in 8 to 10 different colleges on that campus. So I believe they're really the model right now. Unfortunately, esports at Hampton is just in the School of Liberal Arts and Education and in continuing education. Maybe a year from now we'll be able to say we're cross-disciplinary because I believe it's STEAM, and I believe it should be because you need people in front of the mic. It's something that's everywhere. But I think maybe from a park and recreation standpoint, you might be able to get a better opportunity for more inclusive because, as you know, deans have to be concerned about their college and sometimes not always willing to share. So the politics of higher education can sometimes stifle what's best for the community. So sometimes you have to work outside of the community to get it done.
I actually had a question back to you. Have you seen any good models of integration in other topics where things weren't siloed? How did they do it?
No, unfortunately, silos I think are kind of endemic wherever you go.
Okay.
And so it's just the level of politics that differs in a lot of different countries as well. So unfortunately, a lot of other places aren't doing much better than we are in those areas.
Gotcha. We have time for one more question. We can have this person right here in the black jacket.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Migliore. I'm an esports medicine physician here in DC. What are some of the things that you all are doing to be intentional about promoting the health and wellness of your athletes? And Hunter, I love the gaming chair, but watch those elbow pressures.
This is like advanced studies here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so to be proactive about the health aspect of it, right? Going into this, we definitely had talks about worrying about addiction, right? If we had the space open up where people could just sit down and play all day, you would have the worry that there are some people out there who don't have the self-control, not initially at least, to limit themselves and still go to their studies. And ultimately, UNC is a school. So we do have systems planned to limit students to like 2 hours a day or something akin to that on the computers, right? We have ideas for incentivizing, involvement by maybe you can get an extra hour on particular days if you win a scavenger hunt. We're still in the early ideas of, drafting all of that kind of stuff. But hopefully, especially because this is a big motto in my life, balance we can work out even more ideas, not just limiting time, but promoting, if you come to the esports space often, come do this with me on the weekends, some program like do yoga, right? Like esports teams have now started doing, where the people who are deeply into gaming, who are doing it competitively, need to have balance in their life where they're doing physical things too to develop themselves. So
Nice. Okay. Do you have one? I'm going to give you the last word.
Yeah, and so we're also integrating things like mental health first aid. So the people that are going to be working in the space, we're trying to get them trained to be able to recognize their peers that might be in distress. I've heard, they're in college, so they're already dealing with their friends that have any sort of mental health crises of some sort. So we're going to make sure to be intentional about integrating those sorts of trainings. But we're also going to rely on the experts that we have at UNC because it's a great institution and we have a lot of people that want to get the word out to students, but they don't know how. And so we are going to work with like psychological services. We're going to work with different experts to be able to have events there that encourage healthy behaviors, and they try and encourage that early on before it becomes a problem.
Interesting. It occurs to me that, being able to kind of keep tabs on a problem gamer in your own campus is a good sort of early warning in some ways for other, like you say, sort of unbalanced habits or what have you, signs of depression. I don't want to leave it on a dark note, but we are out of time. Excuse me. So thank you so much to this panel. It was really interesting. Like I said, if you want to make some deals, we're going to do it on this side of the room. I think David deserves another grant from some federal agency. There are a couple here I noticed. So now's the time. Thanks so much for your contributions, and these programs sound amazing. I think in a couple of years we're all going to be coming to visit you. So thanks.
Thank you to everyone who came today. This was really a start, I hope, of a conversation. So continue the conversation online through Twitter with hashtag ED Games Expo. Video archive of this event will also be available at wilsoncenter.org. And I hope that you share and continue the conversation from there. Thank you.